Greetings! In today's video, I'll be taking a look at this set of 12 gouache paints by Mary's. Mary's is a brand of inexpensive paints made in China. I didn't find much info about the brand, but I remember them from when I was a little kid many years ago. On the box, it says since 1919, so I guess they've been around for a while. They are mostly noticeable for their price. As an example, this set of 12 12ml tubes of gouache cost me 10 Canadian dollars in a local store. Considering that most Winsor & Newton artist gouache tubes cost $10 or more for a single tube, having 12 colors at that price sounds like a very appealing deal. The colors included in this set are titanium white, lemon yellow, yellow ochre, vermilion, crimson, green pale, Verithin, cerulean blue, Prussian blue, brilliant purple, burnt sienna, and black. There is no pigment information on the tubes or on the packaging, and I tried looking online but I found nothing. When new, the tubes are sealed and have to be pierced with the back of the cap. I changed the color order a bit to make my swatches. I'm not entirely used to gouache yet, but some colors still proved easier to paint than others. Colors like lemon yellow, vermilion, crimson, cerulean blue, Prussian blue, brilliant purple, and burnt sienna were really easy to work with. Both greens were a lot less opaque. The black is really pigmented and will tend to stay in the brush unless you wash it thoroughly. And the white. White gouache is a very useful color. It's the only way with an opaque medium to get to the lighter shades without sacrificing opacity. This white, though, is not very good. It's not very opaque, and it's also very beige. I thought that perhaps my binder and pigment have separated, so I went in and stirred the paint around. It made for a paler beige, but nowhere near to an actual titanium white gouache, deserving of the name. It's really like a buff titanium shade rather than white. I took out my titanium white gouache by M. Graham to compare, and you can see how that one is so white it's unnoticeable on the paper unless I angle it so that the matte of the gouache can be seen in the light. I also like to use gouache diluted, a bit like watercolor, so I swatched the colors when heavily diluted. They all came out smoothly. The colors lose a lot of their punch that way, which is to be expected. I wet a rectangle on my paper to test how the colors would mix and react to wet in wet painting. In general, gouache washes don't tend to flow and mix with one another, unless you work them with a brush a little. Again, to try these out, I painted another study. I roughly sketched out the layout and the perspective. One of the advantages of gouache is that it's opaque, so there's no need for a super tight sketch since you can always adjust as you go along. I started with diluted gouache washes so I wouldn't lose my guidelines. Then I proceeded to build it up, looking at my reference and adjusting as I go along. Most of these colors dried darker, but perhaps most noticeably for both greens. I had problems with these two colors since they were dark and semi-opaque. It was difficult to build them up to the effect or shade I wanted. The white was workable even with its shortcomings, but it probably would have been much easier with a true white, truly opaque paint. The paints are supposed to dry matte, but the greens here kept a bit of a shine. Another thing I wanted to test is to see how well they reactivate. I know that if you leave them to dry in the palette for a long time, they will crack and fall off. That happens to my better quality gouaches as well. However, I wanted to see how they would work if I let them dry overnight, then paint with them the next day. It's a scenario that is fairly simple and common. They dried nicely over the last 12 hours. I used a spray bottle to wet them all uniformly and made another super quick study. I had no problem at all with the reactivated paints. They worked exactly like they did fresh out of the tube. In the end, where do I stand about this set? On the pro side, this gouache set is super inexpensive and easy to use. On the con side, there is no pigment information and a few of the colors are subpar. There's also a consideration for the white running out before all the other colors, since it's a color that's a lot more useful in opaque mediums. Not all colors dry matte, and the lack of pigment information makes it so there's no way to know just how light fast these colors are supposed to be. My verdict? It's a decent set for practice and sketchbook work since it's so incredibly inexpensive. I'm not sure I'll be using more of it, but at least I know it's not terrible and it's better than nothing in a binge. So, do you have this set? Would you buy it? Let me know what you think. Take care, bye bye.